Hey everybody, my name is Danielle and this is Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. Your presence is very much appreciated. So welcome or welcome back. Today I'm going to chat about the new original series on Hulu. It's called Reasonable Doubt. The story's beginning to take shape and I wanted to chat a little bit about episode 4 titled Guilty Until Proven Innocent. So if you're interested, keep listening. Okay, this episode gave a little more and the story is beginning to take shape. We pick up with Jax visiting Daniel in the hospital. He survived that beatdown from Morgan and her fiance. And if you remember, Morgan is Kalisha's cousin who lived in an apartment that Kalisha was paying for. And then she abruptly stopped paying for the apartment. Morgan was considered a suspect, but she was ruled out because she only wanted money, right, to pay for the apartment, and she felt like Kalisha did her wrong. She couldn't have killed Kalisha either because she was somewhere else, and I forget, but Jax ruled her out as a suspect because in the end she figured out that Morgan only needed money, right? Anyway, Jax's plan to confront Morgan to get Kalisha's laptop, it worked. She threatened to report Morgan as a potential suspect, and with her background, she would get locked up, and it worked. So now they have Kalisha's laptop, so we have to see what comes out of that, right? Jax, she is building a strategy with her legal team, right? Rich is on that team too. Remember when Brayden first visited the firm, he was looking to get an NDA drawn up with a payout to Kalisha to keep Kalisha from talking to the media. He was in the middle of this big acquisition and he didn't want this scandal to ruin that. And so Rich was a part of that discussion because Rich's his specialty is in contracts. And Jax's specialty is in criminal law. The strategy that Jax came up with was to change public opinion of Brayden and to play to potential jurors, right? So it included a speech Brayden was going to give at an event in the community. And mind you, the event was facilitated by JT, who is Jax's best friend Chanel's husband. So JT is Chanel's husband and Chanel is Jax's best friend, one of her best friends. By the way, JT and Chanel are going through their own marital issues. He stepped out on Chanel. She's now living on someone's futon, and Jax really hadn't given much attention to her friend during her time of need. And they kind of worked through some of that in this recent episode. All right, back to Brayden's speech. Jax wrote one for him and he abandoned the script like after a few lines in, and he talked off the top of his head. And for the sake of the story, I'll just go along with that speech being so impactful and supposedly being so profound and deep. Which I didn't think the speech was, but whatever, we'll go with it. In the end, it worked in his favor, right? So they kind of changed public opinion for Brayden. Sarah, which is Brayden's wife, or who is Brayden's wife, was so proud of him after the speech. She hugged him and it looked like she was on his side again, right? But we learned in this episode that Sarah has a secret, right? Yeah, she was confronted by Ryan, who is Kalisha's husband. He confronted her about the email she sent to Kalisha. It was kind of accusatory. Well, not kind of. It was accusatory, kind of implying that it had something to do with Kalisha's murder. Wow. Sarah immediately threatened Ryan to stay away from her and her family, or he'd end up like his SLUT wife. Yeah. Then, after she said that, she immediately turned to the kids with a smile and said, "Hey, do you want to go get some ice cream?" That was very odd. It was very scary. And I'm like, look at Sarah. Something's not right with Sarah and that little secret. And I'm going to talk about a little observation at the end of this recording. So just keep Sarah in mind. Okay. I'll come back to her towards the end here. All right. Let's talk about Damon real fast. He works with his brother at Cook and Sons. I didn't pick that up in the last episode, but I paid attention this episode. So he works with his brother at Cook and Sons, and they are mechanics. But like I mentioned in the last episode, Damon's brother is running product through the shop, and he's trying to lure Damon into making money with him. But Damon doesn't want any part of it. He just got out of jail, and he just doesn't want to go back. So he's like refraining from that lifestyle. Also with Damon, Jax in this episode agreed to go to dinner with him, and he had every intention of paying, but they didn't accept debit cards. Jax wound up paying, and it bothered Damon. It bruised his male ego, and he vowed to pay her back. I have an observation about this scene as well, and I'll share that at the end, along with Sarah. So just stick with me here. Okay, I want to get into Rich, who is the co-counsel on Jax's team, Spencer, who is Jax's son, and then Jax's parents. But before I talk about those three things, I need to talk a little bit about Will, because I hadn't mentioned him before now. So we see Will in episode 1 and 2. He was the security guard that Lewis hired to protect Jax and their children, right? Because of the type of law that Jax practices. Sometimes, she gets threats and stuff. So because Lewis moved out of the house because of their separation, he hired a security guard to protect the family. So the security guard, his name is Will. Well, Will fell for Jax after they had a one-night stand. If you know what I mean, right? But Will, he's catching feelings because he made her breakfast the next day. And in this episode, he rolled up on her in his car while she was running or jogging for the evening. And he wanted to talk to her, saying that he wanted more. And she was like, no, but we had fun. Let's be clear. It's not what I want. We had fun and that's it. But Will is like, well, what if I want something more? So he's not accepting of that. This is just being a night of fun for him, right? He wants something more. And this is making me start to believe that Will is wrapped up into something. Remember that first scene we saw when the very first episode, the very first scene, we saw Jax pleading for her life. She was tied up. She had a gag around her mouth and they took it off. She's like, I won't say anything. I'm starting to believe that Will could be wrapped up in that somehow. But we'll have to see. Nevertheless, Will is, he is problematic, right? All right. Spencer, who is Jax's son. I hadn't talked too much about him as well. He goes to see, Jax goes to talk with Spencer, but his door is locked, right? I'm just giving an abbreviated version. So she goes to talk to Spencer. His door is locked. Previously, she warned him about locking doors in the house, right? Like, we don't lock doors in this house. And he's like, Dad lets me. He's like, well, in this house, we don't lock doors. Anyway, so she gave him a warning. So when she goes back to talk with him, the door is locked. And mind you, Spencer has been acting out since his parents separated, and he's given his mom such a hard time. It's borderline disrespect. It's definitely adolescence, right? Because you see this in teens all the time. But there is a level of disrespect there. And I think part of this has to do with the parents being separated, because we see in this episode when Spencer is talking to his dad, like, are you and mom gonna get a divorce? So he's acting out, giving his mom a hard time. He's more friendlier with the dad. Anyway, when Jax went to go chat with him and that door was locked, she sure did go get a drill and remove the door handle. She threatened that the next time the whole door is gonna come off. So that was a really funny scene. Really quickly, Jax's father, and the mother's part of this as well, but her father sent her a text in this episode, and he says he's in town and he wants to meet for dinner, basically, but he winds up standing her up. So there are some underlying issues between Jax and her dad. He repeatedly disappoints her, and he stood her up before, and she feels like, well, why do I keep doing this to myself? Because she knows how it's going to end, right? So there's some bad blood between Jax's mom and Jax's dad. And long story short, we see Jax blame her mother for her dad not showing up. And she arrived at that conclusion because The mom told the dad, if you're not going to consistently be in Jax's life, then leave her alone. And so now Jax concluded that that is the reason why the dad didn't show up, right? I mean, if we look at this, it's just the little girl in her reaching, wanting her dad, and it seems like a rejection, right? Because he stood her up for dinner, and he's always telling her, "Oh, I'm gonna be here," and she looks forward to it, and then she gets let down, and she was very upset when he didn't come. And the mom showed up there because she knew that the dad was going to do this, right? She's like, I know him. And she was there to comfort her. And in the end, Jax wound up blaming her. So we have to see. And in that little argument there, Jax told her mother, I wish you would give daddy the grace or something like forgiving him the same way you forgive Peter. And Peter is the mom's new husband. And something's not right there with Peter, because Jax she gets tense when she looks at the father. We saw that in the first episode. So we have to see what's going on there as well. Rich. Let's talk about Rich really quickly. He is so bothered by Jack leading this braiding case. I mean, he is so bothered. Something is up with him too. Can't put my finger on it yet, but something's up with him. But Jax put him in his place with him and the partners, right? She said she can't do her job if she constantly has to keep explaining everything that she's trying to do, and she'd be happy to give up the case to anyone in the firm that has more criminal law experience than she does. And it got really quiet, and she gave that look to Rich. Like, yeah, Rich, have a seat, settle down. They went through I think it's called a voir dire process, where they pick jurors, right? So they went through the whole process. They picked the jury they like. So the next episode, we should see the trial start. All right, getting to a few observations, starting with Sarah. The emails. Sarah emailed Kalisha. Ryan, who is Kalisha's husband, confronted Sarah in that little park where Brayden gave his speech. I thought she wasn't aware of the affair, right? So why is Sarah sending emails to Kalisha to begin with, right? And Ryan is alluding to the fact that what if the police know or find out about this, right? And I know about the emails. So, and remember, Sarah said she didn't know about the affair until she found out on TV. I don't know. So something's there. I thought Sarah didn't know about the affair. Why is she sending Kalisha threatening emails? I don't think she murdered Kalisha, but she knows more than she's claiming. So we'll have to see about that. The episode actually ends when Sarah calls Ryan to talk about the emails that she sent to Kalisha. And she said something like, don't you want to know where the story ends? Something to that effect. So yeah, Sarah has a secret. Something's going on there. I can't wait to learn more about that. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Damon. Damon showing the receipt to the waiter or something, a piece of paper to the waiter. I don't know how long he would have had to been in jail to believe that you just show a waitress a piece of paper to prove that you have a specific balance to cover the dinner in your account. I don't know when that was a thing. I don't care how long he's been in jail. That never works. You're not going to just be pulling out a piece of paper to prove, hey, I have money, see? No. This was a terrible idea to add into the script. It was low-key funny, but it just didn't work. I believe Damon to be much smarter than that moment. And I just wish they had a different I wish they just eliminated that from the script. There's a lot of ways you could write in, him not being. I just didn't like the receipt thing. Like, see, look, I have money. No, you don't. You would never show that, whether you were in jail 5 years, 50 years. I mean, that's not a thing. I don't know. I didn't like that part. And then. The one part I did like was at the end when Damon was leaning into Jax and telling her that her husband was a fool for letting Jax go. For real. This is something Michael Ealy is very good at, right? I think he has the acting chops. He's a very good actor to me. and he's a nice looking man. But this type of acting, he's very, very good at it. Every time he's plays a love interest or something, he has this down pat. The way he leaned into Jax and delivered that line, it was so sensual and passionate. I loved it. And I believed every word. Yes, I did. Anyway, there's a lot of good stuff going on in Reasonable Doubt. It's keeping my interest. How about you? All right, Reasonable Doubt, streaming on Hulu with new episodes every Tuesday. Are you watching? You have to let me know your thoughts in a comment below. And that's all I have. So be sure to come back and give me a listen. I'd love for you to like, share, follow, comment, and subscribe, all of which will help my channel grow. So thank you in advance. My name is Danielle. You're listening to Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, I appreciate your support. And that's all I have. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.